Welcome to part 2 of our podcast, the second piece of it. I'm Gene Gantt. I'm the CEO of Eventa, and we provide the clinical arm for the accreditation for PPAHS.
And I am Michael Wong, founder and executive director of the Physician-Patient Alliance for Health and Safety, and we're here to do part 2 of the Enhanced Respiratory Care program.
And today we're going to talk about several things. One, we want to talk about the benefits of being accredited. People are familiar with accreditations in various forms, and they know that it stands for something important, which is a stamp of approval from a third-party organization that's looking at your systems and gives a nod to the patient's family so that they feel like they're getting better quality or good quality that they should get. And so the benefits, to list them off, we're going to have improved patient safety, which is our number one goal.
Absolutely.
And we approach this entire process as a patient safety issue. And if we have improved patient safety, we're going to see improved outcomes. We're going to see facilities that would in a marketplace will have a competitive advantage if they're accredited. We're going to have better staff education, so their staff will be better trained. There is reimbursement recognition in many cases where if you achieve certification or accreditation, you get an increased payment. And that holds true in at least a couple states we know. And we are encouraging other states and payers to adopt the same practice. And then finally, there are probably some insurance coverage benefits that may be applied to the skilled nursing facility or the long-term care facility. So those are all of our various things that are going to result if you get accredited. And so our program consists of 2 different avenues. One is accreditation. The other is the courses that we offer in individual certification. Included in those courses, we have, for example, the first session being the culture of a weaning program.
Which is so important for patients and their families because they can finally hear from the patient, speak to them.
Exactly.
And the patient can speak to them as well. And I think that for families, that really shows that the patient's getting better.
That's right.
And
that's one of the first things that happens in a good weaning program is you have a speaking valve put in place and the patients can start talking. And once they start talking, then the first thing they usually say is, I want to call my folks and call my family. Yeah. And when they call their family, the first thing they say is, I'm getting better. And when that happens, we know we're on the right track.
Absolutely.
And facilities that, since these are outside of a hospital level, we need to be careful with the patient selection. So there are criteria for what that patient would look like from the standpoint of their oxygen utilization, from the standpoint of their blood pressure, if everything's stable. And that stability is very important because we don't want to transfer somebody out of a hospital ICU into a long-term care facility and then have them have to bounce right back. That's traumatic for the patient and the family as well. One of the big things that we'll talk about is quality of life. We want to make sure that these residents have a good quality of life, and it may be that they don't wean from the ventilator, but there are a lot of things that we can do to improve quality of life. Things that we take for granted often. For example, being able to speak and verbalize things. We'll also talk about in the courses various weaning approaches. All of these patients have been through what we call standard protocols that are clinician driven, and they failed them. So we have to be creative sometime when we're looking at the weaning approaches. We also want to talk about the technology and the equipment that's being used. There's a lot of great technology out there. We want to use or see that they use, teach them to use, if you will, small, portable, lightweight ventilators. In some states, that's even required that they have a certain size limit on their ventilators. Besides the ventilator itself, you want small, portable, good battery life. You also want to ensure that they have good airway clearance capabilities. And of course, we are very fond of the use of high flow, heated humidity, and as well high velocity therapy is very effective. Both of those can be applied in the long-term care setting. We then get into how to discharge a patient safely. The whole process of passing a patient from a long-term care facility to a home equipment company is very important. And again, the high flow will actually have sessions that are just on high flow and high velocity therapy.
And that's such an important thing because we all know that discharging a patient out from a facility to home or somewhere else can be a source of adverse events. And as an attorney, I know malpractice claims that go around that too. So,
Correct.
Yeah,
Correct.
So we have to be very careful about that.
We hear stories and see from time to time patients who may have gotten home after their equipment had been delivered, for example, and instead of getting proper instruction on it, they find their equipment on the front porch and they don't even know what to do with it.
Right.
So that education is very important as well. So that's our course outline. And of course, from a clinical standpoint, we've put in enough information that somebody can go through those courses and then they will understand what we are looking for in a weaning program in an enhanced respiratory care center.
And the courses are all online. Folks can sign up and take them online and take them at their leisure.
Right.
When they have the time to do that. We all obviously know clinicians are busy folks, and so they can take them at nights, on the weekends, or whenever they have some time to do that. So
Right.
all online.
And they can receive continuing medical education credits.
They can get some credits for doing that. Here in the U.S., we'll be getting CEU from the AARC, and as well, the accreditation works for clinicians outside the United States. Our accrediting body is in the U.K., so we know that a good 15 to 20% of the PPAHS followers are from outside the U.S., so that benefits them as well. And of course, from our point of view, these patient safety standards are not just for U.S. facilities,
Correct.
but for everywhere in the world.
Correct. And in some countries, we may have to modify the standards a little because of their staffing and their personnel are different than we have here. But the same basic principles apply.
Yeah.
Lungs work the same in Germany as they do here in the U.S.
I think so.
We often see patients that, and often these patients are told by their physicians, by the larger hospital providers that are discharging them, that they will probably be on the ventilator for the rest of their life. They have been told potentially that without this machine you may die. And if it's a family, they may be told your daddy may die or your mother may die. So we have to overcome first, again, back to the culture of a weaning program, we have to first overcome that fear and convince the patients that they can trust us. And in doing that, we have seen patients that have been deemed unweanable by some of the best hospitals. And the truth is they were unweanable at the time. But as time goes on and as they get more accustomed to their new environment and this longer-term environment, they relax and trust you, and then you can start the weaning process, albeit sometimes a very slow process. We use the term not never, but not just right now. Patients, as they have been in these facilities, we've seen patients that have been there for up to a year or more, or patients who are at home on a ventilator for several years who come back through the system and come in, and we're able to get them off the ventilator. And those are huge quality of life issues. Even if a patient is in a palliative care setting and it's comfort care, we still will try to wean those patients because it's better for them to be ventilator-free in the end than it is to be tethered to a ventilator. And we've seen quite a few cases of families that have patients that have made the decision not to continue mechanical ventilation. And they, instead of going into a hospice program, would rather have the people they trust around them, and they'll stay in those facilities and go through that whole process. We do like to have facilities that have end-of-life discussions with their patients and families, because sometimes care is futile. We can't do anything, and we want to cure everybody and we want to wean everybody, but as we know, we can't do that. So we've had tons of successful stories. We've had tons of great outcomes. The folks that work in these particular units get very attached to their patients. They usually follow them home. They usually go attend birthday parties. We've had weddings in facilities before. Those are all quality of life things that we sometimes take for granted.
And they mean so much to the patients and families.
Exactly. So, for example, quadriplegics, if we can improve their quality by, sometimes we can't wean the ventilator, but we can wean the tracheostomy. Those patients can go on non-invasive ventilation. We work them from, wearing a mask to potentially having a mouthpiece ventilation set up so that they always have a breath available for them. And that is great for the patient, because then they can converse with you. They can turn and get a breath as big a one or as small a one as they want to take. And those are very important things. We've had a lot of pediatric patients that have been tracheostomized early in life when they were born, and they have outgrown their disease state, and they can be liberated as well and decannulated. And there's nothing like having a child that's 5 years old that no longer has a tracheostomy. That is a truly life-changing event, because then they can swim, they can go to the store without a suction machine, lots and lots of things. So there are a lot of ways we can improve the quality of care. And that's, again, going back to, we make the facility safer, we make the care safer, outcomes will follow. And that's what we're after, outcomes for life.
Yeah, and Gene, we're so excited to be working with you. I mean, ever since we appointed you to our board of advisors, and just being able to partner with you to make sure that these standards are met and clinicians are taught, just means so much to patients and their families and their communities.
Right.
Everything that we can do for patients to make them better, their quality of life in particular, is what they're concerned about. But,
absolutely.
But as well, you've seen payers happy, I guess.
Yes.
In that side. So, I mean, I look at patient safety as a win-win. So maybe mention a little bit about payers as well.
Yeah, it's a win-win for everybody. The world we live in today is more of a managed care world than it has been ever. And these managed care organizations, they work very hard to get the best care for their patients. Because if they have the best care, then they're going to have the best outcomes, and it's going to cost less for the system. So managed care payers are very interested in what we're doing, as are states, because they see the benefit of accreditation and see the benefit of following a set of standards of care that are established, and this will be for the first time that you have, from state to state, similar standards put into play, and that'll be through voluntary accreditation. So that's very exciting.
Yeah, it absolutely is. And as an attorney, I can say, obviously, if you're getting better patient outcomes, clinicians are less likely to get hit with a malpractice suit. Families are happier. And again, we're going back to the win-win situation in patient safety, and this is truly a win-win. And so that's why we're so glad to be partnering with Eventa.
Yeah. So we at Eventa, we're very proud to work with your organization, with the Patient Safety Alliance. because of the fact that you are well known and you have done a lot of good work. You've moved the needle in a lot of different areas, not just the respiratory area, but also in the area of opioids and monitoring post-operatively and things of that nature. And I think that's when I first came in contact with you, we talked about that. And I know that you have moved the needle in that particular arena as well as other arenas too. And often, as we've talked about, it's hard to measure how much you did move the needle. We feel like with this, we're going to be able to measure it pretty precisely.
We can say how many facilities are accredited each year.
Right.
We can say how many clinicians have taken the course and successfully passed the course, being rewarded a CME credit for doing that.
Right. And as they submit data to us, we will be able to track the outcomes and see if we have improved outcomes. And we'll be able to see how many patients were liberated from the ventilator. And there's nothing more fun for a respiratory therapist than to see somebody come off of a ventilator that's been on there for a long time. And again, when these patients are discharged, you have to think about it from the standpoint of they are going to come off at some point in time and be positive about it, as opposed to just bringing them in and giving them custodial care and not even trying to get them off the ventilator. I've had conversations with therapists who say that they've had more patients self-wean in that environment than they have weaned themselves. And if a patient can self-wean, then that pretty much tells you that they were able to come off the ventilator. They shouldn't have done it by themselves.
No, they shouldn't have, because obviously there's some dangers in doing that.
Exactly. And that's part of the patient safety.
Yeah.
With advanced monitoring that we promote, again, a big safety element. You don't want a ventilator disconnect. If you have a disconnect, sometimes the pressures will still be reached enough to keep the alarms from working, and when that happens, then you have a patient death even. So we want to avoid any kind of situation that would cause the patient any harm, and I feel like this is the right way to do it.
So to learn more about the Enhanced Respiratory Care Program, just go to our website, www.ppahs.org, and look for the Enhanced Respiratory Care tab. As well, if you want to get involved in other patient safety matters, look at our Get Involved tab, and there you can write articles for us. You can join one of our patient safety committees. We have volunteers from around the world who help us out, from IT folks in India to graphic designers in the Netherlands to game designers in Brazil. So there's ways to help out, and if you can't figure out a way, you can always donate money.
There you go. And again, your work is pretty broad spectrum. You do a lot of things in a lot of different areas. I think it would be interesting for people to go on your website and just see the extent of what you do. And we especially want to thank our sponsors who made this all possible. When we first started talking about it, we were very fortunate to have Fisher & Paykel as a sponsor, Vapotherm as a sponsor, and Brios ventilators. And those three have helped us get started. They've supplied us with assets to use for our classes. They are part of our whole program in a big way because, again, they gave us the educational grants to get started.
Yeah, and I know some folks are leery of big companies, but both Gene, you and I, in speaking with these three, in connecting with the individuals there, we really believe they support us in what we're trying to do and share the same patient safety goals as you and I do.
Exactly. And I was impressed with that, the fact that the heart of the matter to them was patient safety and getting involved like that. It wasn't so much of a sponsorship. They looked at it more as an educational grant.
Yeah, absolutely. It's more of an educational side than trying to sell or market their product, which really that was a benchmark for us.
It really was. Yeah. Yes. So we thank them and thank everybody that supports us, and look forward to coming to your facility and getting you accredited if you apply. And as Michael said, go on the PPAHS website and give them a try, see what they do. And thank you.
Thank you for listening.